The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday Morning Show, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Mark Cranack on assignment this weekend. We are on the road, and I'm staring out at the new Aquatic Center at Wilderness Ridge. The slide looks, well, mesmerizing, quite frankly. I'm about 30 feet or a bad chip flip shot from me from the practice greens here at the redone, revamped, incredible Wilderness Ridge. We are out here, of course, for the Team Jack Golf Classic that gets going around 9:30. And just a phenomenal morning to be out. No wind, mid to low 70s here as we enter in further to the morning. And we're streaming live here on ESPN Lincoln's Facebook and Twitter feed. The man, the myth, the legend making that slow walk is Mike Schuchart. He'll be with us in a little bit. We will talk with Phil Steele as Phil Steele joined us earlier in the week, college football preview. A lot of former Huskers going to be here to help raise money to fight against pediatric brain cancer. Shuey is going to sit in with us right now. We catch up with him a lot of Wednesdays on Hail Varsity Radio. But Elijah, just a gorgeous morning and a wonderful cause today that, going to be here at Wilderness Ridge, the Team Jack Golf Classic.
Well, it even got Shuey to pull out a tie on a Saturday morning. Wow.
I think Shuey wears a tie more often than we're accustomed to. Shuey, how are you, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks for having us. This is such a great cause when it comes to Team Jack, and the Golf Classic is underway. We've had a chance to chat with Spencer Long and Jeremiah Sirles, two dear friends of ours, leading up to this event. But the signage is up. The banquet area is ready to go. And there's going to be a lot of Husker fans swinging the clubs today in the name for Team Jack.
Yeah, we're super excited to have them, and to see all the former players and active players and all the supporters of the event. So we're super excited to see everybody, have them out. They got a gorgeous day to play golf.
Yeah.
So, that's a bonus. So,
Shuey, this is a long process that I know kicked off last weekend when we talked Wilderness Ridge, brother. And the Aquatic Center is masterful. Have you got your lap time down? You've been able to work on that. Tell me what folks can check out here. This is flat out beautiful. You got the deck that's always been a staple. The golf course is second to none, and now folks can swim up and get hydrated.
Exactly. So it's been super exciting. I mean, our membership that finally, when it opened up, over the 4th, all of them have been super excited about it. Amazingly. A lot of good comments, better than expected. Mm-hmm. That's always good to hear. And it is. It's spectacular. It's a huge area, has 5 different bodies of water, so there's a lot of different things you get to do. The lazy river seems to be super popular.
I saw you over the bridge there, minding shop over the lazy river.
Yeah, so swim up bar is very popular as well. So it's really neat because there's, like I said, there's 5 bodies of water, so there's always something you can kind of go and do. It's been very well attended. Let's put it that way.
Well, there's parts for everybody. There's parts for mom and dad. There's parts for the kiddies. Have you gone down the slide yet?
I haven't. What was really cool is our marketing director. He actually took his phone, went down the slide.
Oh, did he?
Took a picture going down the slide.
Just videoed?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Mike Schuchart's with us. Shu, I know you got a lot of running to do. I wanted to grab you, though, real quick and say, first and foremost, thanks for all you do, and thanks for having us out, and congratulations on just an incredible setup here with the Aquatic Center at Wilderness Ridge. Real quick, we're posted up here. Is this the kind of the outdoor indoor banquet facility? There's tables and chairs. There's just a gorgeous patio not far from the practice green. What's this officially titled, my friend?
This is our Pro Shop Learning Center.
Okay.
So it's a combination of both. So our Pro Shop is on the east side of the building, and then we go into our Learning Center, which we also can use as event space. Mm-hmm. So it's a really cool building, what they built and what we have, because it has multi-uses to it. So it's been awesome, what we've done so far this year, being able to do what we do what I do, but also then be able to accommodate our members in different events and events like this, to be able to host that. So it's just, they did a fantastic job with putting things together and thinking about everything that goes into what it is, and it's functioned and worked incredibly well. So I'm super fortunate to be able to come to work every day and get to look at this and be involved in it.
Mike Schuchart, Wilderness Ridge Golf, Team Jack Golf outing. The Team Jack Golf Classic gets going around 9:30. Shuey, appreciate you, brother.
You bet.
Good to see you. Always. We will chat soon, and it's good to spend some time with Shuey as we are out here at Wilderness Ridge. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you turn our attention to some football here, and I know we have a lot of former Huskers that are set to swing away and have a great time in the name of Team Jack. And if you want to donate, if you want to give back to Team Jack, help the fight against pediatric brain cancer, you're able to do that. I know the golf tournament's just super going to be well attended today, but a reminder that only 4% of the National Cancer Institute research investments are spent on childhood cancer. So more is more important than ever to donate to find a way. And we know Jack's story, the run for the touchdown in the spring game, and childhood cancer is the leading cause of death in children in the United States. Less than 4% again of the National Cancer Institute's research investment spent on childhood cancer. That means even less is spent on brain cancer. And many Husker alum, many Husker football greats going to be out here to help pledge their support. Numbers to get in this morning at 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com, as we're here at Wilderness Ridge for the Team Jack Golf outing. Elijah Herbel back at our ESPN Lincoln studios. Find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, or at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. About 15 minutes away, we will rewind with Phil Steele. Really in-depth preview of Nebraska football. We look at the Big Ten with Phil. In hour two, we'll say hi to Brandon Vogel. We may even try and stream Mr. Vogel as we're broadcast live here on Facebook and Twitter with ESPN Lincoln. Gary Sharp, the Iron Horse, going to be with us around 8:30. So, pretty interesting rundown, Elijah, as we look at some preseason Big Ten rankings. And when we talk power rankings, it's a great discussion point, right? You look at power rankings, who and why are going to be at the top of the list, and that top two rarely changes in the Big Ten. It's Ohio State or it's Michigan. Last year, Michigan rose up and did their thing and got to the college football playoff. But heading into 2022, it is Ohio State. They are the top Big Ten power ranking on three. National on three put out their power rankings. Ohio State 1, Michigan 2, Sparty 3. And quite frankly, that's the pecking order from last year, although Sparty did have the head-to-head over Michigan. Are you surprised? We'll get to Nebraska in a minute. Are you surprised Wisconsin comes in at number 4, just in front of Penn State, but in front of Minnesota and Purdue and Iowa? Your 1 through 8 is your top 3, or presumed 3, in the East, with Ohio State, Michigan. And then there is Michigan State. Penn State in at 5. They're coming off a 7-6 season. They have not fared well head-to-head against Michigan State. Wisconsin slides in at 4. Fleck and company at 6. Purdue at 7. And then the Hawkeyes at 8. That is an order that you can kind of mix and match, but it comes down to quarterback play, returning quarterback starters for Ohio State and Michigan State. Sparty's going to have a talent back. Tanner Morgan, for God's sakes, been there 400 years for Minnesota. But Nebraska comes in at 9. Nebraska comes in from a power rating standpoint in at number 9 behind Iowa, behind Purdue, behind Minnesota. Elijah, Nebraska's not beat anybody in front of them. They've had chances. They've had opportunities. They've been in ball games. And I don't think you can argue with this. And there's a lot of newness to Nebraska. There's so much newness to Nebraska, or faces that you may know or have heard of around college football. But you all got to come together and gel for an important season. Nebraska just sneaking in front of Maryland. Listen, I can't argue with Nebraska being so low in the power rankings. Now, we can talk different lists. We can talk surprise teams. We can talk dark horses. We can talk long shots or, all right, bets that may pay off, Kentucky Derby style based on preseason prognostication. But until Nebraska puts a history together of some close wins, of some divisional wins, they're going to be slated behind some of their other peers in the Big Ten and in the Big Ten West when it comes to power rankings. It's all chirping. It's all talking anyway. Chance to prove it on the field.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is power rankings, not their preseason prediction of how the Big Ten's going to end up.
We said power rankings a lot, yes.
Just making sure that's emphasized here. And I don't think there's anything wrong with their rankings whenever you look at it. I mean, when Ohio State should be number 1 in Big Ten power rankings year in, year out. I mean, even week in, week out during a season. We all know Ohio State's the cream of the crop of the Big Ten. Michigan gets in it, too, because of their recent history, what they did last season, and what they've done as a whole under the Harbaugh era. There's nothing wrong with that. And then, to me, it feels like 3 through 6, 3 through 7 is kind of there. Yeah, these teams are perennially the good
slot
teams.
Them somewhere. They'll end up somewhere 3 through 8, but it's really it's a game of Jenga, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you got 10 through 14, which is these are usually the bottom feeders of the Big Ten. They might come up and surprise you. Nebraska, I feel like, gets its own ranking right at 9, where it's like, you look at their recent history, you're not expecting them to be good, but you also look at the talent on the roster and you go, that's a better team than the Marylands of the world and the Indianas of the world. But based on what they've shown us, we can't put them ahead of Iowa. We can't put them ahead of Purdue. We can't put them ahead of Minnesota, despite the fact we can look at their roster and say, yeah, the talent there is probably a little bit better. You can't do that based on Nebraska's recent history. So Nebraska coming in at 9 is almost like their own area of the power rankings, where it's not, we were expecting them to be good. It's not, we're expecting them to be bad. It's, we really have no idea what we're going to get from this Nebraska team, and that's because of what they've done the past 3 years.
Well, and that's just it. It's absolutely just it. The way to predict or determine success is on past history, right? We've heard a lot of coaches tell us that, and past history as a predictor. Okay, what do we know about Nebraska? Past history says they're going to be in a lot of big games. Past history says they're going to be probably leading in some of those big games or have an opportunity to put a drive together within the last 3 or 4 minutes of a ball game, specifically against Iowa, to either get a stop or go make a play on a drive. That's how it's been in the Frost era when it comes to those Iowa ball games. I mean, they have been tooth and nail down to the wire. Nebraska's inching closer to Wisconsin. A really fun ball game when it comes to those who took the overs last year against Whiskey. So we'll know more as things move forward with Nebraska and we get ready to kick off for Ireland. We're not that far away from Big Ten Media Days. A week from Tuesday and Wednesday we'll be at Lucas Oil Stadium. And we know that Phil Steele has his thoughts in about 10 minutes. Elijah, some pretty interesting comments from Matt Masker as he had a chance to sit down with our old buddy Sip. And This kind of blew me away, just with the narrative of the interview with junior quarterback Matt Masker, and the focal point is the difference of the offense, as the sunshine is completely engulfing me as we're here at this indoor-outdoor learning center here at Wilderness Ridge. We're staring at Wilderness Ridge, the deck just in front of us, the practice green to our right. We're here to help support and promote the great folks with Team Jack this morning. The Team Jack golf outing gets underway at 9:30. Back to football, and Frost has turned over, per Matt Masker, nearly all of the day-to-day operations of the offense over to Mark Whipple. Now, that isn't shocking as far as if you're trying to make a hire for a guy like Whipple when it's interview time and, hey, we need some help on offense, we're making a change, how about you come work for us? By the way, great job at Pitt. And if I'm Whipple, I'm like, hey, I'd love to come to Nebraska. I think there's a lot of upside here. But I'm going to need full control. I mean, that's just how it has to go. I mean, and the comments here from Masker in Tip's column is just eye-opening because, quote, he definitely has taken a step back, and I think that's been really hard for him. Frost is an offensive guy. Scott Frost is a really, really, really smart offensive guy. He has a vision. He has an idea. He has a plan for what Nebraska's offense needs to become to win in the Big Ten. And when you think of Nebraska's offense, Elijah, what do we think of with Nebraska's offense? We think of explosiveness, but we think of some inconsistency. And I also think of, unfortunately, it'll look good. It'll make you say, wow. And we're not far from the 4th of July. It's that incredible firework that you got that may go off, may give you a little ooh and an ah, but ultimately you wanted more, right? I don't want to quite go to the dud card, but we've all had that artillery shell we've lit off, and it was the 7th of 8 that wasn't as spectacular and pretty as some of the others. And that's what I think of the Nebraska offense right now, although we've got a whole new brand of fireworks waiting for this upcoming season because of this change, because it is going to be Whipple. So what do we expect to see with Mark Whipple? What do we expect to see with the Nebraska offense? And per Masker's comments, I mean, if you want a little look-see, if you want a heads up, just start watching Pitt film. And I think the biggest thing for me when we talk Nebraska's offense in 2022, it has got to be a situation where the run game won't be abandoned but can't be abandoned. There's got to be balance as good and as much as the Whipple offense has been throwing the football in that controlled passing game. You've still, in fourth quarters, against the Iowas, against the Wisconsins, you still got to be able to put a 4-minute drive together and win running the football. That's just it for me. When push comes to shove, you're going to win in the Big Ten running the football. And is that going to be the emphasis in this offense? We'll see. But to me, you've got a ton of skill talent. You've got a couple of quarterback options. And I think Nebraska's going to want to get down by throwing the football and use some of their studs. But it's ultimately going to be that offensive line and a running back that gets it done for Nebraska in those November games, in those deciding drives that turns Nebraska in from are they going to be bowl eligible? Can things be okay for Nebraska and Scott Frost in 2022? To, okay, Nebraska's really dangerous throwing the football to all their talent. Nebraska's got a playmaker and a poised passer in Casey Thompson or a Chubba Purdy. But, wow, how about that Nebraska offensive line, and how about the running game? How about Ramir Johnson? How about Anthony Grant? How about, pick somebody, right? That's going to be, future headlines here as we get into December. If it's a great season or even a good season for Nebraska, it's going to be because of the run game.
Yeah, and really fast, I want to go back to the metaphor you made about the artillery shells in the 4th of July with Nebraska's offense. Because what Nebraska's offense has been is like, you just said, say 8 artillery shells, but the 7th goes in, and I kind of like what you said, but I'm going to say you put the artillery shell in upside down, and it blows up in the tube, and then a spark goes into the back of the minivan you got parked in the driveway, lights off a firework.
It's that Twitter footage.
Yeah, and everything just goes off the rails. That's what Nebraska's offense has been, where it looks pretty for the first 6 plays of a drive, and then that 7th one goes in, the artillery shell is upside down, and it absolutely just destroys everything. That's what Nebraska's offense has been, and continue.
No, I was going to say, we can further this metaphor by a gust of wind knocking over a full artillery shell, and then boom, your keg gets blown up because guess what? It does go off, but that is the air quote dreaded turnover, right? Mm-hmm. That's the inopportune turnover in a key moment. Brennan checks in on Facebook Live. Look, Elijah looking bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Apparently I look like crap this morning, Brennan. I'm just kidding you here, but we're here at Wilderness.
I think I look fine, right? Like, I don't look that tired.
No, I think you're fine. No, you're good. Got to bed early last night. We're here at Wilderness Ridge. Team Jack golf outing gets underway at 9:30. The sunshine is just beautiful. There's shade and shadows, and then a dewy practice green right now. You've a lot of us have been to the golf course early in the morning. There's no finer time in the morning than the morning to go swing the clubs, and it's just peaceful and gorgeous out here. No one has screamed for yet. There's been no missed birdie opportunity, but it's all in a great cause for Team Jack, Spencer Long, and of course Jeremiah Sirles and so many former Huskers, Rex Burkhead. They'll be out here raising money for Jack, Team Jack, in the fight against pediatric brain cancer. And bless their heart, they've been doing it for so long, since their days at Nebraska with Jack. So that's why we're out here this morning. And it was great to spend a few minutes with Mike Schuchart, Wilderness Ridge Golf, as Shuey sat down with us. So we have Phil Steele on the docket. We will check in with Brandon Vogel from Hail Varsity, talk some more football. Had a tough one last night, Elijah. I'm not going to lie to you, man. Thanks to you and Dolman for covering Hail Varsity. So Nebraska is, always a talking point. Occasionally I dive into Junior, my son. He's a player for Southwest, and it was just an incredible back and forth. They smoked Westside 8-0 last night, and then we get to the grudge matches of all grudge matches, and it's always a tight, good ball game between Southwest Remax and Millard West. Millard West, an incredible baseball program, and back and forth. There's key hits, there's clutch hits, there's men on base with minimal out, and both, the pitchers are battling through, and Junior was tapped and called upon to come in with a tie ball game in the 7th, and it just didn't go well. There may have been a few hit batters. There may have been a couple of strikeouts, and it's one of those learning experience moments last night where I will throw a GIF up of Ricky Vaughn, of my kid, and we had a little Wild Thing sighting last night. But we had as they say, good talk last night, and raising the teenagers like, dude, shut up, go to bed, old man. That's his takeaway. But no, back at it tomorrow, or today rather, up at Millard North for their tournament. We're here out at Wilderness Ridge. Team Jack golf outing is going to commence at 9:30. We will rewind with Phil Steele. Thanks to the folks at Wilderness Ridge, and thanks to the folks at Team Jack for having us out. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Phil Steele's next weekend edition continues. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Hello, listener. Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity Radio, and I wanted to let you know about a special deal just for listeners of the Hail Varsity Radio Show podcast. We're offering $10 off the annual subscription price. That means that you can get everything we do. 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all the premium content we produce at HailVarsity.com. Just go to HailVarsity.com/subscribe and enter in the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
With Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery, with Chris Schmidt and Mark Whipple.
Back into it, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Mr. College Football with us, and we say hi to Phil Steele. College football preview. 28 years of excellence, and the 2022 edition is there for you digitally or on your newsstand. We say hi to Phil. Phil, thanks for the time. Great to talk some ball with you.
Yeah, always fun talking with you, Chris. We've been doing this together for quite some time now, and voice very familiar, so good to talk to you again.
Well, it is great to hear from you when we talk, Phil. That means college football's just around the corner, 51 days, but yes, we're counting. And a lot to dive into, and a lot to just take a gander at, right? With the realignment with USC, with UCLA, but the top of mind awareness for us is the Big Ten. And Phil, that's where I want to start, is just your overall outlook. Who do you believe is the biggest threat? What's your research and data told you for Ohio State? Who could be a challenger for the Buckeyes here in 2022?
Yeah, well, Chris, going back to last year, using that as an example, or using that as the reason for this year, last year, and I talked to about 120 of the 131 head coaches out there. And last year, 90% of them told me, Phil, this is the deepest we've ever been. During COVID, everybody returned, with the exception of those players that got drafted. Everybody else was back. So almost every team had 17, 18, 19 returning starters last year. And they would say, Phil, this spring we were able to run 3 deep. We've never been able to do that before. And now what happened was the powerhouses. You look at Ohio State. Didn't make the Big Ten title game. Clemson didn't make the ACC title game. Oklahoma didn't make the Big 12 title game because those teams all lost players of the draft, whereas everybody else had 17, 18, 19 returning starters. Well, this year, I think it's more of a return to normalcy. Everybody lost something this year, including the big boys, and I think that's going to really help teams like Ohio State. And with Ohio State, I see them as head and shoulders above everybody else in the Big Ten this year. You look at their overall recruiting classes, what they have coming back. I mean, they've got 3 Heisman Trophy candidates, quarterback C.J. Stroud, running back Travion Henderson, wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba, who actually broke the school single-season receiving record despite playing with 2 first-round draft picks at the receiver position. An improved offensive line, and they bring over Knowles for the defensive line, plus have plenty of talent. I do think they run the table and win the Big Ten this year. Top contenders, Michigan's going to be up there. In fact, Michigan's got a chance of being 11-0 when they face Ohio State that season final. But I don't think their defense is as good. They lose Aiden Hutchinson. They lose David Ajabo, Chris Hinton, all from up front. They lose Ross at linebacker, Hawkins and Hill from defensive backs. Not as dominant as they were defensively last year. And then the West, I think the West is wide open. We're going to see a lot of teams knock each other off. So I don't know if there is a clear-cut contender to Ohio State this year. Michigan's probably going to give them their biggest challenge during the regular season.
Phil Steele's with us. College Football Preview 2022 can log on philsteele.com. Also, find him on Twitter at PhilSteele042. You led into the West. And who do you like, or who has the best quarterback situation in the West as you look at it? Is it Purdue because of O'Connell coming back, or do you think there's somebody else there that could surprise in the West in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of potential quarterbacks in the West. I mean, Illinois brings in Tommy DeVito, who I thought did a good job at Syracuse. He's a guy that can run and throw. His problem was he got injured. So if he can stay healthy, they've got a pretty good situation. Talking to Coach Fitzgerald this year, going over the team with them. He's pretty high on Ryan Helinski. He felt that Helinski was thrown into a tough situation last year, didn't really know the offense as well as he wanted him to, was going to redshirt, then had to play him. Helinski's a guy that started at South Carolina, and I think he'll have a much better year this year. Connell does rank as the top guy at this moment because he had the very productive year last year, throwing for 3,700 yards with a 28-11 ratio, comes back as a senior. Your biggest concern with him is about the receiving core. Will they be as good, losing a guy like David Bell and Anthrop? But I think O'Connell has to come in as the number one guy. Casey Thompson is a guy that did well at Texas. And now he steps into more of a passing offense under Mark Whipple. Whipple just was the QB for Kenny Pickett at Pitt, who had a fantastic year. And I think Thompson can do well. Tanner Morgan had a MVP type of season a few years back when Soroka was his offensive coordinator. Soroka's back as offensive coordinator. Will Tanner Morgan regain that form they had 2 years ago? And then Spencer Petras from Iowa is a guy that he's not flashy. He's not going to throw for 3,000 yards, but he's a veteran quarterback. He's 6'5", 233 pounds, and he can get the job done. And then Wisconsin, Graham Mertz might have the most upside of the 7 quarterbacks that we have here in the Big Ten West. But he has sure, after that first game he had in his first year against Illinois, he has been very inconsistent since then. If he can live up to his talent level, then he has the potential to really skyrocket among the West quarterbacks. But I think all 7 teams have potential there at the QB spot.
Phil Steele's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Specifically, Phil, let's dive into Nebraska. Your reaction to last year's 3-9, what the numbers tell you about the Big Red, and what do you have slated for Nebraska? What do you think happens for Frost in year 5?
Yeah, the numbers tell me they were a lot better team than the final record would indicate, that's for sure. I mean, they outgained their opponents, outscored their opponents on the year, and to be plus 56 yards per game in Big Ten play, you finished 3-9 is pretty remarkable. You had every game, every loss last season was a close loss with the exception of Ohio State. And when I mean close loss, I mean within one score. So 7 net close losses last year, and the 3 wins were by 45, 25, and 49 points. So this is a team that's way under the radar as far as they were much better than the 3-9 record. All my indicators out there are pointing heavy on Nebraska up. They had 7 net close losses, 4 net upsets, plus 56 yards per game in Big Ten play. And so it's really promising for them. But I'm going to take you back to 2019. They had a lot of signs pointing their way. I had them as my number 1 most improved team in the country, and Scott Frost and company disappointed me. They went 5-7. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. I do expect them to be a much better team, and I think they are a contender in the West this year if they can get those close wins.
Do you have Nebraska projected as a bowl team, Phil?
Yeah. Yes, I do have Nebraska, and I think they could pull an upset or two. So I can see them flipping the record from 3-9 to 9-3 potentially.
Phil Steele's with us, college football preview, Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska, Big Ten, and Ohio State. Where do the Huskers figure into the West race? Phil, you dive into some of your games of the year. You look at most improved. As you look at Nebraska's offense specifically, where are they at on your radar when you look at the offensive line situation and just that side of the football for Nebraska? Turnovers have killed them, and their red zone efficiency has been an issue. Defense was pretty good last year. You lost a lot. And then special teams has also been an Achilles heel that's supposed to be much better under Bill Busch.
Yeah, and thank goodness they brought in a special teams coordinator. It's something that Nebraska hasn't had recently, and you can see it in the numbers. You go back and take a look at the last 3 years' number of special teams rankings. They ranked number 111, 112, and 129. And there's a lot of coaches out there like Duke's David Cutcliffe who says you win 3 to 4 games a year on special teams. Looks like Nebraska might have lost 3 or 4 games a year due to special teams with all those close losses out there. Now, offense is going to be the key. They bring in a brand-new offense coordinator, Mark Whipple. Mark Whipple likes to throw the football. Ask Pat Narduzzi about that. He will throw the football on first down, second down, third down. And that's quite a change. It's quite a change in the pass blocking schemes of the offensive line and quite a change overall for the offense. But Mark Whipple also produced some pretty good offenses, one of the top offenses in the country last year, led by Kenny Pickett. So I think a lot of it's going to be how quickly that offensive line adapts to the new offense, how quickly Casey Thompson emerges as its starting QB. And I don't have question marks on the defensive side for Nebraska. The offense would be the major question mark.
Phil, let's zoom out and talk a little bit on a national scale. We look at some teams like Oregon and, of course, Utah, some favorites out of the Pac-12, while there still is a Pac-12. Also, give me a thought here on the SEC with Bama and who can challenge Bama. And quite honestly, who can challenge Georgia? Where are you at with A&M? Let's look at both of those leagues real quick. First with the SEC, is it tile or bust again for Saban?
Yeah, I believe it is. And this Alabama team is better prepared than they were last year. They're more experienced to bring back the top offensive player in the country in Bryce Young, and they bring back the top defensive player in the country in Will Anderson. This is one of the more experienced teams Alabama's had. They've had 5 great recruiting classes. They'll be favored in all 12 games, naturally. Toughest game might be home against Texas A&M, which is a team equal to them talent-wise, but not equal to them experience-wise. A&M only brings back 11 returning starters. I think if you look at A&M this year, I feel they're the third best team in the SEC and may be a year away from actually contending for the title. But I do think next year they are an SEC title contender. And then Georgia's just going to reload this year. They lose a ton on the defense, but they play 3 units on the defense. So as inexperienced as they are, they're probably more experienced than you would think, and there's tons of talent that they have there. The offense can be even stronger, and Stetson Bennett showed he's a quarterback that can win. I do think the SEC title of the game comes down to Alabama, Georgia, and I think that's going to be a hell of a game.
It's been that way. You get him in the title game, and then you get him in the national title game, the conference title game, and then the national title game. Utah, are they a playoff team in your eyes?
I believe they can get there, no doubt about it. Last year they were a different team once Cam Rising took over at QB. Deep backfield, one of the best tight end rooms in the country. My number 6 rated offensive line, my number 17 rated defensive line. Linebackers, I rate number 11 in the country. DBs, number 12. So they have potentially a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. I remember last year when they got lit up late against Ohio State, they had a running back playing defensive back. They had a walk-on playing defensive back. They had a banged-up secondary. They're much better in the secondary now that they've returned to health and have a player like Clark Phillips back there. And so I think you take a look at their talent and then the schedule. The closest games this year at Florida in the Swamp, where I've got them about a 6-point favorite. At UCLA, I've got them a field goal favorite there. And then maybe the big game at Oregon. But I think Utah's got the potential to run the table. Their 2 biggest contenders in the Pac-12 are probably USC and Oregon. And with Oregon, you look at them, the big knock on their quarterback, Bo Nix, was he couldn't win on the road his first couple of years. But last year he won some big road games. And this year, all of Oregon's big games are at home. They play Stanford, UCLA, Washington, Utah, all at home. The road game's very manageable. Washington State, California, Colorado, Oregon State. I think that gives them a great shot at getting to the Pac-12 title game. And finally, USC. Got to love the job Lincoln Riley's doing there, especially through the transfer portal. I mean, this was a team that was 4-8 last year. They only have 11 returning starters. But he brings in Caleb Williams, his quarterback from Oklahoma. Mario Williams, one of his top wide receivers from Oklahoma. Jordan Anderson, the Blitnikoff winner from Pitt. Travis Dye, 1,000-yard rusher from Oregon. The top receiver from Memphis, top receiver from Colorado, top receiver from Washington. He's got an offensive line that he was surprised with. When I talked to Coach Riley, he says he likes the top-end experience and didn't expect to inherit this much talent. And then defensively, they had in Alabama a guy that started 13 games for Bama, was my number 6 linebacker out of high school, and Shane Lee. He comes in at middle linebacker. They've got Mekhi Blackman coming over from Colorado, who was one of the more underrated cornerbacks in the country. Ton of transfers on the defense. I think they could be they are my number 1 most improved team in the country, and I think they can go from 4 to double-digit wins.
Phil Steele's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, college football preview. Phil, real quick, how do you factor in the transfer portion of this? Mel Tucker, the shining example, 11-2 and incredible last year for Sparty. Nebraska's kind of in that similar boat. They were right there with USC as one of the more aggressive teams. I mean, 15 portal guys for Scott Frost and some really high-profile guys, not just a Casey Thompson, but also an O'Shawn Mathis, a win out of Alabama. I mean, Nebraska really went shopping. How do you factor that in when it comes to prognosticating a team's success?
Well, I think the main thing for me I'd like to see is the guys from the transfer portal win the starting job in the spring. I think that's the ones that are going to contribute the most. You know, talking to the coaches, it was hit and miss for the portal, and a lot of the group of 5 head coaches did not have as much success with the FBS transfers coming in as they did with the FCS transfers coming in. But I think among the FBS guys, do your research, bring in the top guy. You can have an impact, and we saw that all over the country last year with a bunch of teams that did have an impact. So it is hit and miss a little bit. Transfer portal, you wonder if the guy's got an attitude. Why is he transferring? Why didn't it work out the other school? But I find the transfer portal is definitely a good replacement for if you lose a lot of players to bring those guys in. And as you touched on, Nebraska very active in the transfer portal market.
Phil, last thought, Oklahoma is coming to Lincoln. No Lincoln Riley, but Venables is coming up to Lincoln. Huge non-conference game, huge nostalgia with the rivalry. And is that a springboard game? Is that a barometer game for you for Nebraska for the rest of the season? Or do you think it's Ireland? How do you kind of rate like most important ball game for Nebraska this year?
Yeah, I would say, to me, the more important game would be the Ireland game against Northwestern. They got to come out there and win it. Northwestern's a very dangerous team under Fitzgerald coming off a losing season. If they can win that, I think they are a Big Ten West title contender. And that's going to be huge there. If they lose that one, then all things are lost. Losing Oklahoma doesn't affect your Big Ten standings, and the Big Ten is really what they need to do, and they also need to get the wins. Now, as far as that game goes, I mean, last year was a heck of a game. You know, Nebraska could easily have won that game, changed one play here, one play there, could have won it. I thought they controlled a good portion of the game. And this year they get them at home, so it's going to be one of those toss-up games spread-wise. I will say this about Oklahoma. They only have 10 returning starters coming back, but Dylan Gabriel at quarterback is a guy that had a fantastic 2019 season with Jeff Lebby as his offensive coordinator. He's playing in the same system. It's Jeff Lebby as the offensive coordinator, Dylan Gabriel at QB. They've got Eric Gray. They've got a much-improved offensive line. They've got some dangerous receivers, and the defense, Venables knows defense, and they should be well. And they also have a decent special team. So I think that's going to be an incredible game and a great one as a national college football game. But more important in Nebraska is definitely the opener against Northwestern.
Phil Steele, college football preview. Phil, we'll get caught up again. Awesome to spend time with you. Thanks for the time today.
Hey, always a lot of fun, Chris, and appreciate you having me on. And don't forget the magazine's available at Barnes & Noble the first 3 weeks of July here. You can get it at Barnes & Noble's starting on July the 9th, and then you can also go to the website, philsteele.com. But always great talking with you, Chris.
Phil, you take care.
Thanks.
Pardon the interruption, but I'd like to save you some money. I'm Brandon Vogel, managing editor of Hail Varsity, and I wanted to offer listeners of this podcast $10 off the price of an annual subscription. That means that you can get everything we produce, 10 issues of our monthly magazine, our annual football yearbook, and all of the premium content we produce at hailvarsity.com. Just go to hailvarsity.com/subscribe and enter the promo code GBR for $10 off a full year of Hail Varsity. That's hailvarsity.com/subscribe, promo code GBR.
The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday Morning Show, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We are on the road, weekend edition, posted up here at Wilderness Ridge. The Team Jack Golf Classic gets underway at 9:30, and a lot of former Huskers, a lot of Big Red fans will be out to show their support for Team Jack, the fight against pediatric brain cancer. It is just a wonderful organization and event, and we are thrilled to be part of it. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in managing editor with HailVarsity.com and magazine, Brandon Vogel, with this. I'm out here in the Education Center, is what Shuey titled it, the indoor-outdoor facility here near the putting green. Elijah is chained back at the studio, bless his heart, and we go to the Brandon Vogel football office and studio. Vogues, good morning. Good to spend time with you. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. Maybe I'll get some letterhead made from the football office of Brandon L. Vogel. It's a good idea.
I think that works out well. We will dive into some of Matt Masker's comments. We'll dive into the power rankings, where Nebraska was slotted, some recruiting as well, Vogues, that you and Aaron Sorensen have been all over. But you and I were big Sopranos fans. Uncle Paulie left us yesterday. Uncle Paulie is most like who in the Big Ten? Uncle Paulie represented who in the Big Ten? What football program? Why do you watch The Sopranos? Who?
Maybe Bielema.
Okay. Ooh.
You know, after seeing him kind of go off on his O-line last year in the middle of the season, saying, I don't think there's a player we've recruited here in the past X number of years that's contributing. You know, we've seen Brett. You know, he's a pretty calm guy. He can be pretty funny, which, you know, I guess that was Paulie too. It's the when he goes off part that you got to worry about. So I'm going to go with that as my pick.
I love it. Brett Bielema is Paulie Walnuts. That is your Big Ten comp right now. You know, I think I'm going to go Michigan because you don't want to mess with them. You don't know how it'll end, and if they're on it, and you know, Paulie was a criminal, so this is not praise. But when he was in charge of something, more times than not, it went well for him and for Tony. But there was the infamous Pine Barrens episode where him and Christopher were stuck out in the cold.
I was just going to mention that.
Okay, and
he's looking for the interior designer that killed 12 Czechoslovakians.
Yeah, yes,
yeah.
and you know, this guy was from Russia. What? He's KGB? No, that episode, the way Paulie was kind of squirming, always represented Ohio State to me. There's that, you can't ever undo that episode, as great as it was. But man, super sky point to Paulie Walnuts. Vogues, a lot of football to get into, so let's start there. And as a whole, we'll go recruiting here. Give me a grade for Nebraska this summer with some of their hits and some of their misses. What's the cumulative score look like here for what Coach Frost in Nebraska's done here for 2023?
Yeah, good question. I think cumulatively, I would go with a B, maybe B plus. B plus. To get to the plus, I think it's because they're, in my opinion, a little bit further ahead with the number of commits they're probably going to go into the season with. So that's good news. They got some guys in the boat and were able to get them committed. Had a pretty, I think, successful, visit period there with the camp season and a couple of Friday night lights. So it felt like a little bit, after really 2 recruiting cycles that were disrupted by the pandemic and restrictions there, this felt like it was a little bit back to normal. And I feel like Nebraska maximized that. I'd have a hard time going higher than that just because of really some recent developments. I mean, you've had really the top 2 running backs, I think, on their board both went elsewhere. That's a little bit of a hit. So other than that, though, some of these other guys who Nebraska maybe made the final group for, I don't know if the Huskers were ever truly the leader there. So B plus. They did some good work. Still got a couple of big holes, in my opinion, that they'll be looking to fill this season.
Brandon Vogel's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine. We're here at Wilderness Ridge, Team Jack. Mike Schuchart's wandered over. That is a spectacular tie he's got on. He's like, you like that? I do like that tie. No, I think Nebraska's done a good job. I think Mickey's been the story. You wrote about Mickey this week. Is Nebraska still okay? I mean, Brock Knutson's the in-state kid. They got him. Vogues, they also were in it for the kid that went to Oklahoma. His name's slipping me. Forgive me on that. But
Caden Green?
Thank you. Caden Green was right there. I mean, Nebraska was right there. It seems like not only is Nebraska like finishing second or third amongst a really nice peer group that didn't go 3-9, right? But they're losing to Oklahoma. A lot of kids. They're losing a lot of kids to Oklahoma. So is that a good thing or a bad thing to be in it with Oklahoma once again for recruits? You gotta start winning some of those battles, and the battle down the road here will be between Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Michigan for Malachi Coleman.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. Not just Green this week, but Phil Picchiotti. Well, I guess at the start of the week, really. It feels new a little bit. Like you didn't, at least in my memory of it, didn't see Nebraska and Oklahoma intersect a lot. And that might be the result of a new coaching staff there. Lincoln Riley was truly, kind of coast to coast to a degree that I think a lot of Oklahoma coaches in the past, they weren't to that degree. So that might be part of it. They're just intersecting a little bit more in the Midwest. But I do think it's an indication, those two guys that we just mentioned, Green and Picchiotti, like they were obviously Oklahoma caliber recruits. It's not like it was a regional find that Nebraska got in early on and then Oklahoma swooped in. So I do take that as pretty true. Nebraska has been recruiting with Oklahoma. Oklahoma still has, it has the past decade compared to Nebraska's past decade to sell. And at a certain point, like you can't talk your way around that.
Brandon Vogel's with us here on a Saturday morning edition of Hail Varsity Radio. And Brandon, it's felt in like the past 2 weeks like Oklahoma, maybe even the past month, Oklahoma's been Nebraska's real recruiting rival this cycle. Has there been a team that you can pick as over the past couple years during the Frost era as being Nebraska's recruiting rival? Is there a team like that, or is there a team you can project out as you look at the future of college football that could be Nebraska's rival here in the near future?
Yeah, there's not one that easily comes to mind, and it might be, maybe Iowa, and that's mostly, I think, and Iowa obviously comes to Nebraska and has done well there. Noah Fant pre-Frost era, but Keegan Johnson was of course a big one. And Nebraska goes into Iowa too, and it's tough. I mean, Iowa just landed one of the best offensive linemen in the country, a final group that was Iowa and Alabama. So they do a pretty good job of protecting that territory. I think that's always going to be there because they have a ton of confidence and they've had some success, particularly in the Metro in Nebraska. So that part's always going to be there. I think we'll continue to see this Oklahoma piece of it. And realistically, if Nebraska can start winning at some of those head-to-head against Oklahoma, it means, the Huskers on-field play probably improve. But I think that's probably where they should be. It was much different in the Big 12, Big 8 years where, the Big 8 basically was Nebraska and Oklahoma, and they intersected all the time. Turner Gill, Leonis Flowers, go on down the list for all of the, kind of high-profile recruiting battles that involved the Huskers and Sooners. But where they're located, and I think, for programs of their standing, with how much they have to go national, Nebraska to a greater degree than Oklahoma, of course, I think they should be recruiting basically running mates or competitors when both of those programs are at or towards their optimum level.
Brandon Vogel getting us caught up on the week of recruiting. It's Hail Varsity Roadshow Weekend Edition. We're here at Wilderness Ridge. The Team Jack Golf Classic gets teed off at 9:30. We thank Shuey and the crew from Wilderness Ridge and, of course, the great folks at Team Jack for having us out. Spencer Long, Jeremiah Sirles really putting this together with the incredible folks from Team Jack. So we're on site at the Education Center here just near the putting green. And Vogues, I know that water and beach and sun are a bit of an acquired taste, but next time you're in town, we got to get you down the Wilderness Ridge slide. There's a swim-up bar. There's an adult area where mom and dad can pop on a tube and hit the lazy river. But I think Vogues with a vintage Cubs hat turned backwards, face first, down the winding slide would be something everybody on Hail Varsity Instagram and Twitter want to see.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody would want to see it, but I'm interested in doing it. I do better with pools than I do the ocean. I think it might be what you mentioned, Chris. I've yet to see a swim-up bar at the ocean. Occasionally, you will find one at a pool.
See, the bar being the key word. Let's hit on some power rankings, and Elijah and I kicked off some thoughts here in hour one about some power rankings from a site, national site, and Nebraska comes in at 9. Ohio State 1, Michigan 2, Sparty 3, Wisconsin weirdly is 4 in front of Penn State. I know Penn State struggled last year. Then you get your Purdue and your Minnesota, Iowa at 8. But Nebraska 9, is that, let's go Goldilocks and the Three Bears, too high, too low, or just right? Or do you think it's more than fair based on past performance here with Nebraska? We're trying to project 2022, but how does 9 grab you?
Feels pretty fair. I don't. It's hard to put them a lot higher than that. You look at the 9 Big Ten games this year. I think the only 2 teams on there Nebraska beat the last time they played are Northwestern and Rutgers. And was Northwestern ahead of Nebraska in those rankings? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they were. They won the division twice in the past 4 seasons. Down last year, and there's some big question marks about the Wildcats this year. But it's such a, so you've got Ohio State, and I think they've got such a lead at that number 1 spot, even over a number 2 Michigan. And then I think, there might be a pretty good gap between Michigan and that next group, which for me would be Wisconsin, Penn State, maybe Iowa. And then you get to kind of the vast middle of the Big Ten, where you can kind of put all the names in a bag, shake them up, and see how they or what order they fall out in each year, where you're talking Minnesota, Purdue, Northwestern, Nebraska is probably in that group. Michigan State, maybe, although it might be trending out of that group. So it's based on on-field results. It's hard to say, well, Nebraska is clearly better than 9. That said, in my mind, there's probably a lot of movement there between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 every year.
Brandon Vogel's with us here, a Saturday morning edition of Hail Varsity Radio. And Brandon, with your team previews, I want to get your take on this. I'm just going to list off the Big Ten West teams in order, and I want to get your reaction to how they've ranked them. Wisconsin comes in at 4 in the Big Ten. They're the first team in the Big Ten West to come in. At 6 is Minnesota. 7 is Purdue. 8 is Iowa. 9 is Nebraska. And then after that, you got Northwestern and Illinois. Is that a fair ranking of the Big Ten West coming into the season?
I would have Iowa ahead of Minnesota and Purdue. I think, the question with Iowa is obvious to anyone, Iowa fan or not, just anyone who watches Iowa football. Like, the defense is going to be top 5, top 8 in the country, and the offense might be bottom 5 or bottom 8 in the country. Can that offense get to a level where it just helps the defense at all? And Iowa really has built itself over 20 years under Ferentz, 20 plus years under Ferentz, to help its defense in other ways, particularly special teams. And I think it's tough based on the current run that Iowa's on, even with that offense, even knowing. The amazing thing about Hawkeyes is they don't need much offense. They have figured out a way to win doing that, and not many teams in today's college football can. So I go Iowa 2, probably Minnesota after that, and then Purdue, if we're looking at kind of power rankings going into 2022, sure. Had a pretty good run to end the season last year. Defense made a ton of gains, That said, I would be more bullish on Nebraska's chances in 2022 than I am Purdue's at the moment.
Vogue's Bill Conley with ESPN put out his West preview. Phil Steele chatted with us and has Nebraska as a team that could follow through on that most improved list despite 2019's face plant. 34th and 35th. That's the projection by Conley. Bill says Nebraska's offense could be 34th to 35th. The defense could be 34th to 35th. That's the projection. Their projection also 7 to 8 wins, right, and 5 conference wins. So we put that all into the blender. 35th is what? What's that translate to? Point-wise, scoring offense-wise? And from a defensive standpoint, does that sound too good to be true based on what's lost, a top 40 defense? Because I think they were, 60th last year total defense?
Yeah, I'm guessing Nebraska defensively probably ranked higher in the defensive SP+, which is an entirely separate thing. 34th or 35th offense, I'd have to look. Well, I was actually looking at some scoring offense numbers now. Let me see from a points per game perspective what that was. 35th was 32. Okay. Yeah, I figured it was probably around 32, 33 points a game, which if you can do that in the Big Ten, playing a 9-game Big Ten schedule, like you're going to be pretty good. Pretty good since you're playing 9 conference games might be 8 wins, which I think everyone here and everyone listening would probably sign up for with Nebraska right now, if you could lock that in. And from a defense perspective, so that probably is 25, 26 points a game, which would be up a little bit from where Nebraska was at last year, and that's probably fair given how much they have to replace. But if on average you've got a 6-point cushion each year, or over the whole year between offense and defense, what you're scoring, what you're allowing, you're probably going to be in that 8-win range most of the time. Now, the thing with Nebraska has always been, it's supposed to be there, but it's just not for whatever reason. The thing I liked about Connolly's Big Ten West preview is he's like, you can look at Nebraska and see all of the randomness of the Scott Frost era, but at some point you do have to wonder, maybe it's not random.
Brendan, we've talked about the offense and the defense, but we're leaving out a very key component that's let Nebraska down a lot in the past couple years. That's the special teams, and special teams gets glossed over in preseason previews. It's happening the past couple years for Nebraska, and it feels like every single year you get to week 1 and you go, oh yeah, the special teams, I forgot about that. And Nebraska fans haven't forgot about the special teams this offseason because of how bad it's been. So what does Nebraska's special teams this year need to do to just not be a complete minus on the team? We're talking top 100 in the country, top 80 in the country. What do they need to do?
I'd say be between 70 and 60. So that puts you 65 is average. It's the median for 131 teams or thereabouts. If they can just get to average, which would be basically a net zero, they're not one of the best special teams units in the country that's, maybe adding a point or two to your total each game, but they're not detracting a point or two, which has certainly been the case the last 4 seasons, I think, for Nebraska, if you were to look at it as a whole, at least a point or two. So kicking game, make 75% of your field goals. That's about the national average. Nebraska wasn't close to that last year. I think they were at 50% at the end of the year. Punting, if you can be in the middle of the pack in the Big Ten, that's pretty good because it's usually a pretty good special teams conference. If you get a little bit out of the return game, it's tough in kick return because there's just so many kickoffs are a foregone conclusion, and it's just like taking it to 25, which probably makes sense most of the time. But get 3 or 4 punt returns that kind of flip a game or give you a great field position and a little bit of momentum. And I think it might be as low a threshold as that. Just be average and see where that takes you.
Mike Schuchart's joined us here, Wilderness Ridge Golf. Shuey, you know Brandon Vogel. We're working on getting Vogues to face first when he's back in town. Go down the slide.
You think? I like that.
And he's like, it might frighten people. Shuey, you're a huge football fan.
Oh, yeah.
You've have you wept over special teams the last couple of years?
Oh, my gosh. You want to talk about some frustration. I can't believe my TV's still intact. Many times I've thrown something at it. So it's like, just think of all the games that we have basically given away because of just poor special teams. I mean,
I love
like you said, just average. I mean, it would make a huge difference.
Don't be brutal. Right?
Yeah.
And excited for Bill Bush, man. Love Bill Bush and what he's all about. And should be big time for Nebraska. Brandon Vogel is with us. Hail Varsity Roadshow weekend. We're here at Wilderness Ridge, the Education Center, beautiful patio, indoor facility. I think there'll be some vittles cooked up here for the folks golfing. The Team Jack Golf Classic gets going 9:30. Spencer Long is wandering around here. He's looking for a Hawkeye 2 pancake, which is good. Our old boy Elijah Herbel. Elijah, he just slept in studio last night. He's back in studio, and Vogues is in the Brandon Vogel football office. So, okay, there's the info. We say top 35 in offense, you're scoring 33 a game. Top 35 defense, you're allowing about 26. Special teams, you don't absolutely suck. So there's your win. Brandon, we have narrowed it down to be a lot of one-score games. Does that frighten you? That spreads one possession. That spreads one possession.
Yeah, it certainly does, and that's the thing where, on a broad scale, you look at that and say, well, these things could be kind of random. You get to a one-score game, you're talking about 1, 2, 3 plays that maybe flip that thing. And the thing that stands out with Nebraska is just how crazily they've lost that many coin flips in a row. And just, law of large numbers, you expect that to flip. You expect it to flip for any team. Yeah, you would expect it to flip for Nebraska at some point. I've kind of been expecting it for 4 or 5 years now. It feels like Nebraska is this team that comes in every year, and you're like, well, you can look at that and say they were clearly better than what their record showed. But again, it comes down to that thing, like, at what point does this, stop feeling random and just like some bad breaks? Not a bug, but a feature, as they say. But it's tough to get away from that in the Big Ten. And really, you can go back and look at Purdue's season last year, Michigan State last year. Go back further than that. It's some of those Northwestern seasons where they jump up to 9-10 wins, and that's how it is. It's a tough, grapple in the middle of the ring type of conference, and you're going to have to win those one-score games unless you're in Ohio State or in Michigan occasionally, Wisconsin when it's really humming, where you can just extend a lead on people. Those special seasons, even Iowa, which is 9-10 wins each of the past 4 or 5 seasons, it's the case for them. How you do in those one-score games can take your season from, hey, Nebraska's okay, not as bad as everyone thinks, but they're all of a sudden they're playing for the division title on the last day of the regular season. Probably got there by going, say, 4-2 in one-score games to that point.
Well, I think back to think of Purdue. What really sparked them to a 9-win season? They went and dismantled Iowa, right? What really kind of got the buy-in for Sparty? Well, they went down to Miami and rolled, right? I mean, they just got the run game going downhill. Northwestern's run, they've had a couple of monster seasons when they've won the West. They've always had that one game that all right, proved the actions and the coaching and the game plans are accurate. Proof of concept, right? And I think to Nebraska's level last year, I think the Oklahoma game, while maddening, Elijah riding a scooter together through Norman, trying to get back for a post game, a little Dumb and Dumber tribute. That game did a lot confidence-wise for Nebraska. As bad as the Illinois game was, of that kind of soul sucker, Oklahoma did the opposite, and you saw some really good momentum. You just couldn't finish against Sparty. You just couldn't finish against Michigan. And that's got to change. And I think some of the new voices, Vogues, as we wrap around, and Shuey and Elijah, I think some of those new voices can help instill some confidence when it comes to that finish line.
Yeah, I think so. That's the play for Nebraska. And, the way the schedule sets up, you've got one of those opportunities, I think, to kind of get the ball rolling week 0 before most of the rest of the sport starts. That Northwestern game, it's going to be interesting. We heard about kind of Nebraska's schedule for that week over in Ireland, and it's going to be like a bowl week, which, presents a challenge preparation-wise. Can you stay focused? Can you treat it like, hey, this is the season opener, even though it's going to feel a lot different in a lot of ways? That said, Nebraska kind of got the best of it to a degree. Maybe it hasn't in the Frost era in that Northwestern game last year. Like, everything they wanted to do worked. They got out to an early lead and just cruised. That hasn't happened very often, but it could really build some momentum. I think their second best chance, even though it's one of the best teams on their schedule, you get Oklahoma at home, and if you can get that one to go your way, that could really, really provide kind of a boost going into full-time Big Ten play after that.
Brandon Vogel, managing editor, HailVarsity.com and magazine at Brandon L. Vogel. We're here at Wilderness Ridge. Mike Schuchart, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Quick timeout, and we'll move forward. Vogues, have a great weekend. Thanks for taking time and making time to jump on with us, bud.
You too, guys. Have a good event. Thanks.
There he is. Brandon Vogel with us on Hail Varsity. Quick timeout. We'll find the Iron Horse. Gary Sharp will be with us. We'll see if a few of those players that were part of teams that went to conference title games make their way over. Shuey, are you
what a day.
Are you geared up?
I'm geared up, man. The day is beautiful.
It is.
The sun is out. They're going to have
phenomenal.
An awesome day to play. Course is great.
Mike, Yep. Team Jack Golf Classic here at Wilderness Ridge. Mike Schuchart with Wilderness Ridge. I'm going to go find the swim-up bar here in about 35 minutes.
Mike, not too far away.
That's right.
Mike, really fast, before we get to a commercial break, you've been really good at handicapping some PGA majors for us. Do you have any predictions for the Team Jack Golf Classic on who might come out on top at the end of the day? I know it's for charity. I know that there's no winners and losers, but
everyone's a winner.
Have you looked at the roster?
Everyone's a winner, no question. I haven't looked at it that close, but
Shuey needs to examine the field.
I got to go. You asked that question. Now I'm curious. I got to go handicap this field now.
All right, we'll get it to us before 9.
You got it.
All right, a quick timeout. Sharpie's on the way. It's Hail Varsity.
Early to rise with Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Here's Chris Schmidt and Mark Cranick.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio weekend road show here at Wilderness Ridge Golf as the Team Jack Golf Classic gets underway here less than an hour. A lot of former Huskers that have been so near and dear to Team Jack. Getting ready. Shuey, Mike Schuchart, Wilderness Ridge off to do that homework assignment, Elijah, when it comes to handicapping the field. Who's got the best chance? We welcome in the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, with us. Sharpie, top of the morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, and you know that that's a great cause that you're out at Wilderness Ridge for, and it's amazing where the idea started from to where it is now, and it's just unfortunate that Andy isn't part of it for once again, but it's so great to see so many people that are carrying on his vision, and it's also amazing how quickly Jack has grown.
Jack is absolutely growing, and Sharpie, you're so right. I mean, it's very sad with Andy, but we thinking of him, of course, and his family and the Hoffmans and so many folks with love in their heart out today to help fight pediatric brain cancer, raise money, raise dollars, raise awareness for research dollars to battle cancer and pediatric cancer. So well put, well said, Sharpie. We switch gears for a moment to football. 49 days, Gary, that we kick off, and it's Ireland time. We think of Nebraska football, and you know what, between the preseason prognostications that are out, and the off season and the summertime that's so key for these guys chemistry wise to get together. I want to start off with your take on Sip's sit down with Masker. What's your reaction? What are your thoughts with Masker's look-see into what's really happening with the offense? And we thought it would be the Mark Whipple show. It absolutely will be the Mark Whipple show.
Yeah, there was the thing that I kind of gravitated more was a little bit about what the quarterback is going to look like. It's not really a surprise, and I know it's the off season and we're 7 weeks away, and that's been the question: is how will Scott Frost react to Mark Whipple? And that's basically what it is. Let's look at it from Scott's standpoint. It's uncomfortable. I mean, you've been humbled. You basically got fired as the offensive coordinator last year, and you had to bring in somebody to do an offense that is really entirely different. I think people are going to see this offense, and it's going to look different from the offense the last 4 years. And I'm not talking about the execution, but I'm just talking about how it looks. And so you don't really know what's going on. Now, as the CEO, you have to have an idea of the whole package, but it is Mark Whipple's offense. I mean, he runs the show. He comes up with the game plan, and it's not a surprise what Masker said, and it's also not a surprise that, I think Scott has had a little bit of trouble adjusting. I remember in spring practice, Schmidt, he didn't know what to do during practice. It afforded him the time to kind of oversee and walk around and see the entire picture instead of looking at it from the offensive side. Talk to players that were on unofficials, but it's going to be an adjustment because you have to separate yourself, and he's not going to be messing in that room. I can tell you 100%. That is Mark Whipple's offense, and Whipple is running the offense. Now, it doesn't mean that Scott can't chime in, and there might be some things that, he sees that or he's used in the past that might be implemented, but there is no doubt that Scott Frost is not involved in the offense anymore. So that's going to be an interesting transition, especially when you think about your job is on the line this year, and you don't have control over that aspect. I mean, that's tough. So we'll see how that all plays out. Now, the other part of the conversation was about quarterback, what the quarterback's going to look like. And I think we all can safely say that the quarterback will not take a beating like it has in the past in Nebraska. With apologies to Tommy Armstrong and Taylor Martinez and Adrian Martinez, you're not going to run the football like they have in the past. I mean, you looked like last year, a couple of games where you thought, wow, Ramir had a lot of carries. And then you look closer at the box score and go, whoa, Adrian had more carries. What is going on? You're not going to see that. I think you also see a more mechanically better type of quarterback, and also the way the offense works. I've used the word dink and dunk a little bit, but it'll be more, let's just play catch. Let's just play catch. Let's get the ball in the hands of the playmakers, and let's get them in space and let them go operate. So what kind of reaction it was going to get. Good for Masker. I mean, he's been here for a while, and he was honest, and I think we all have to be honest on how this transition is going to work this year. But just think of, in our business, Schmidt and Elijah, you're in the ratings business. You say to Elijah, hey, why don't you be the number one guy and run the show? I'm going to take a step back when your job is on the line. And that's kind of what it is right now with football. And so it's a transition for Scott, and we'll see how it plays out over the next 7 weeks and, of course, over the next 12 games when things maybe don't go so well.
Gary Sharp's with us here, Saturday morning edition of Hail Varsity Radio. And Schmidt, I see you got Sirles sitting next to you now.
Sirles found his way over, and it's always good to see you. Jeremiah, what's up, brother?
How are you, my friend? Always good to find you guys.
Good to see you. Sharpie, you remember Sirles well, and we welcome him in, and we'll jump back to football in a second. But Jeremiah, big thanks to you and your friends and what you've done with Team Jack from the get-go, partner, to now, and we have the Golf Classic here. You spent second on this event, to you and Spencer, and the hard work that's gone into it.
Well, appreciate that. Spencer's done a lot of work. Kylie and the Team Jack team's done a ton of work, and to think that, just about 10 years ago now was the spring game that we all ran with Jack, and now here we are putting on a fun, and Rex is here, and Kenny's here, and it's like the whole gang's back together, so it's been really cool to get everyone back together and just keep raising money for a great cause, and what a beautiful day. You couldn't ask for a better day. Wilderness, it looks my first time golfing out here this year, so super pumped to get on the course, too.
Are you going to hit the slide later?
Oh, of course, if they let me on. I'm a Firethorn guy, so they kind of But also, I did just real quickly, Sharp, you take some shots there saying, not going to get beat up, is like Tommy Armstrong, Taylor Martinez. I protected a couple of those guys. I don't like the shots across the bow at 8:45 in the morning.
Hey, by the way, what a flex you just pulled off. I'm a Firethorn guy. But good on
Absolutely.
Because quietly I am too.
That's what I'm talking about, Sharpie.
I have my flags firmly planted someday if Mama keeps working at Wilderness. So I want to get your take here, Sirles, to Sharpie's take on the quarterback part, the beat-up part. I think Gary was talking about the quarterback run part,
right?
Not necessarily the left tackle or right tackle pass protection.
Fair.
Fair enough. Can Nebraska survive without much quarterback run?
It's really going to depend on what the scheme of the offense is, right? In a Scott Frost run offense, the answer is no. It's just not, because you have to have that redirection and you have to have the ability to go so many different ways. But with an offense that is built kind of like Pittsburgh, it's more of the changeup, right? The Kenny Pickett changeup, where it's not the consistent 4-yard, 5-yard, 10 yards. It's the 2 or 3 big 20 or 30-yard runs because they schemed it up. I think that this team, this Husker team, really has to rely heavily on the running backs. They made a big push of putting more players in that room. Ramir Johnson's going to take a big leap from last year to this year, you really hope. And then you add a few of those special players that came in, and then you just hope that you lean on the O-line. Like, listen, we're going to be a downhill running football team. Then it's up to them to go out there and do it. Now, there's more question marks than answers at that position, too. But, I think that the whole idea is we can't rely on the quarterback because Adrian Martinez barely finished a year not getting destroyed or having an off-season surgery, or go down the list of all those quarterbacks. It's just not a sustainable business model if you want to have a successful quarterback.
It's Jeremiah Sirles, Gary Sharp with this weekend edition, Hail Varsity Radio, Wilderness Ridge, out here for the Team Jack Golf Classic. Gorgeous morning here, phenomenal facility. Go ahead, Sharpie.
Let me chime in, because Jeremiah can point to this, because this is one thing that I know, because I've heard him preach this about Mark Whipple, is the ball's got to get out of the hands quick. That's part of his quarterback development, is you're not going to hold the ball. 3, 5, 7 step drop, but the ball is out of the hands quickly. And you know this, Jeremiah. Look what it does for the drop for the offensive lineman, on how much that'll benefit them. If you have a quarterback coach and an OC preaching, we're not holding the football. We're going to get it, and we're going to get rid of it quickly.
Yeah, that's a great point, but it also comes down, when you talk about getting the ball out quickly, so much is on the quarterback, but so much is on the receivers running precise and direct routes. If you're running an out route at 8 yards, it can't be at 7.5, and it can't be at 9. They have to be so direct, and I think that's where the beautiful marriage of Whipple and Joseph is really going to come together, right? If you want a quick in-rhythm passing game, the quarterbacks and the receivers have to be on the same page, so dialed in. But that's really where it comes down to. You want to kind of pick a starting quarterback a little earlier than later, because that's how you develop that chemistry. And so the longer this quarterback battle kind of drags out, the longer it's going to take to get that rhythm passing game down.
But if I can jump in here for just a second.
That's loud.
We're talking about the passing game here. We haven't seen a team that isn't run dominant win the Big Ten West since we moved from that Legends and Leaders format to the West and East format. There's never been a pass-happy team go out and win the Big Ten West. Is it possible, if Nebraska comes out and plays a pass-happy system next year, are they going to be able to win the Big Ten West? Because we just haven't seen that yet.
It's going to be so dependent on who's the trigger man, right? If you have a trigger man that can sling the ball all over the place, then yeah, for sure. But you come November, you better be able to run the football. You're going to Iowa. I played in plenty of games where you just could not pass the football. It's too cold, it's too windy, it's XYZ, right? So you have to be able to run the football. So I think that you can get through early parts of the games and early part of the season, but you have to just continue to build the run game so that when you're hitting November and late October, that's more of your polished thing, not as much the run game, if that makes sense.
Sharpie, want to get your take on Whipple and just his identity. We know it's quick passing, we know it's controlled passing, and it's, he has done well at a lot of stops. Push comes to shove, is he going to be able to lean? Is he going to want to lean on the run game? Will it be strong enough to help balance an offense, and will it be good enough to not be a liability or make it 2nd and 9, 3rd and 9 if you do try and run the football to burn some clock?
No, I think any OC and their bread and butter has got to be able to find to run the football when they want to run the football. You look at the teams that have won the West over, since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten, they're running the ball about 64% of the time. So you can say, whoa, you're throwing the ball 46% or 36%. Yeah, you got to be able to run the football, and you got to be able to run the football when you want to run the football. And I think a key element, everybody's looking at Kenny Pickett. He still wants to run the football. He wants to go with the downhill running game and the different elements that he'll do. So they're not abandoning the running game. That's going to be one of those things they're going to lean on is the running game. They'll just have some really good wide receivers. And as Jeremiah was saying, if you can marriage all of those aspects together, I mean, you could have a really, really efficient offense that when they want to do something, they're able to do something, and they're not forced to do something. And I think that's going to be a key element that they're going to work on. But I also think you're going to see something different this year. You're going to see pet plays. You're going to see build-up plays. You're going to see stuff you might see in the first and second quarter, and you go, why are they running that? Well, they're setting that up for something later in the game. And I think that'll be a key element that you'll see, that there'll be a dedicated game plan that makes sense, that rolls out over the course of a whole game. Instead of trying to score 3 touchdowns on your first 3 possessions, you'd like to have 1 or 2, but it's going to be a build-up during the whole course of the game. And I think that's the way that Whipple will go at it with his experience as a play caller and all the different kind of quarterbacks and systems he's managed.
Gary Sharp with us, Jeremiah Sirles, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. We're here at Wilderness Ridge Team Jack Golf Classic. Sharpie, always appreciate you jumping on. Sirles, I got to put you on the spot, and Sharpie gets your reaction. You too, Elijah. Who are you handicapping here? The Team Jack Golf Classic. What group is there to watch? We asked Shuey. He's doing the research. What do you think? You're playing with your teammates here.
Yeah, I played with quite a few of these guys. Kenny Bell can absolutely piss missile the ball. It's pretty impressive. But I've also, my guy Austin Allen, long levers. It's pretty, he tees that thing up. He has extra long tees, things like 5 inches in the air, and he just kind of baseball, just whap, and it just also goes.
How's your game?
Mike, you get me within 160, I'm good. Right now I just kind of pee dribble off the tee box, but we'll figure it out from there. I think there's a lot of good guys. I mean, you get into golf kind of when you retire because it's kind of like I need something to do. But there's a lot of guys here that are just really good athletes that have kind of figured out golf.
Okay.
Now, the big guys, we just don't rotate great, so that's kind of a problem.
That's all right. Sharpie, are you circling somebody based on that analysis?
Well, if this is hunt for the Huskers, I'm going with Jeremiah. But in this case, I never, you know what? Austin Allen was a 2-sport star at Aurora. And by the way, people are going to see today, Austin, which they want him to be a little bit bigger in the NFL. He is a big man. I never count Austin Allen out, but Jeremiah's right. The big guys have that's a little bit of a disadvantage. But whoever wins, it's a great event. But Kenny Bell can swing it. I've played in a tournament with him. My God, that air in Colorado has benefited him well.
All right, based on all this analysis, I'm going to circle Kenny Bell. Sorry, going to go with the offensive guy. Elijah, who do you pick?
I got no idea, but I just want to ask Sirles, who's going to consume the most beers today? I think that's a better question.
That's going to be Spencer Long. That's got Spencer Long written all over it there.
All right. Sharpie, we'll check in next week. We'll be with Tee Off for Treasures on the road out at Woodland for Tee Off for Treasures and Jeremiah Sirles. Sharpie, always appreciate you making time for us, brother.
Hey, thanks, guys. Great to hear Jeremiah.
All right.
See you, Sharp.
There he is. Hey, brother. Sirles?
I got to run.
Yep, you be good. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Elijah, Chris, see you, buddy.
All right, there it is. Jeremiah Sirles with us. We will tip our cap and bid farewell as awesome to be part of the Team Jack Golf Classic here at Wilderness Ridge. We thanks to those who tuned in, and thanks to those who support TeamJackGolf.org is where you log on to lend your financial resources. Elijah, have a great weekend. We'll be back at you on Monday with Hail Varsity Radio.
A Hurrdat Media Production.